Here's a dichotomy or a little bit of a paradox. Many attendees go to events and still feel alone.
Mhm.
How do you address that?
I'll be honest with you, I'm one of them. I'm naturally an introvert. And so I think people like me, when we go to events, as there's so much stimulation and so many options to do so many things that no matter what you throw at us, we still naturally go back to being introverts. What I think that we have to do a better job of at events is, and we're getting there, people are trying. There are a lot of people out there that do a really, really good job of this. There's a lot of organizations that still need to kind of catch up. But we have to continue to diversify the experience. And if you've heard me speak at other podcasts or virtual events, you've heard me say this before. Diversifying the experience is so important. It's important to make sure that every single person that attends your event feels like they belong. And that includes the introverts and the extroverts. That includes the social butterflies and the people that need a moment to recharge. That includes the people that drink and the people that don't drink. That includes the millennials and the Gen Zers. You have to find a way to kind of touch almost every part of your audience and make sure that everyone feels a sense of belonging. Because I think the more that we do that, the more you will find that people will be more comfortable going to events, knowing that in this sea of stimulation, I know I will find something for me. Not only do we have to do a better job of diversifying the experience, we have to do a better job of promoting, communicating that experience. Different cultural observances. If your event falls over a specific cultural observance, you need to communicate what you're doing so that people who are practicing that specific culture know that there is something at your event for them. So it's not just doing it, it's communicating it, it's promoting it, it's walking the talk. It's really creating a sense of belonging for every single person that you feel may be attending your event. Now, this takes research, right? This takes unpacking your demographic, unpacking your attendees. You don't want to waste money and resources on things that no one in your attendee list or no one from your attendee group is going to actually do, right? So you have to do the research. You have to really take the time to analyze and understand your attendees. But once you've taken the time to analyze and understand your attendees, you need to take the proper steps to make sure that there is a sense of belonging for that profile of attendees so that people feel a sense of belonging and that they're excited to go. I, for one, have had to work on my extroverted tendencies over the years because of what I do. I have to be able to talk to people and mingle and network and things of that sort. But I'll be honest with you, I go to an event and after about 30, 45 minutes of shaking hands and walking around with my drink and my canapes, I'm looking for a corner to escape,
Yeah.
And people will tell you, oh my God, Tavar, I never knew you were an introvert. I would never think. And most introverts, you don't think because we're really good at turning it on when it needs to be turned on. But we also need to have that time to recharge. So I'm always looking for a corner where I can just
Yeah.
sit and just recharge. And so even things like that, right? Like creating a space for those introverts to kind of just relax and recharge. Call it a recharge zone, call it whatever you want to call it. But for me, if I went to an event and they had that space where I can go for 15 minutes in silence and recharge, I kid you not, that's something I would remember forever
Yeah.
about that. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
that sense of belonging for everyone.
And that has nothing to do with the theme, the
Nope.
content, the keynote, a breakout,
Nope.
getting a CEU, an
Nope.
activation offsite. That has to do with the psychology of the event and keeping people stimulated, which taking away stimulation
That's it.
and
Yep.
letting you recharge is actually, in an ironic way, stimulation. And I'll tell you, Tavar, recently I was at a couple of events. I go to events like you do all the time. You're not the first meeting professional who is a veteran meeting professional, albeit you're a young man,
Started young.
young at heart, that has unsolicited shared with me that they're an introvert.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yet I never, and I've known, I'm thinking of a person in particular for over 10 years, and I never would have guessed it. So I've heard the term ambivert,
Mm.
right? I would also fold in something that I learned earlier in the week from somebody who is very plugged into event experiences and having spaces where you can recharge. And we had a health and well-being, a naturopath on our podcast who talked about grounding, like physically bare feeding and getting on the ground, especially you and I spend a lot of time in airplanes and conference centers and everything. What about having a recharge space that you bring in some sod, actual
Mhm.
real grass? You put your shoes in a cubby hole and you get grounded.
Yeah.
That would be a memorable one too, you
Listen,
know?
people will forget what you say, they will forget what you do, they will not forget how you made them feel, right? And so when you walk into a space, again, to your point, theme, colors, branding, all that stuff, yeah, wonderful, great, but how are you making me feel? And if you have your attendees, if majority of your attendees, listen, you're never going to make everybody happy, but if you majority of your attendees walk into your experience and they feel like they belong and they feel like you thought of them, that is half the battle.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think we just have to do a better job, not a better job, I take that back. We have to just continue to do a good job of creating that space of belonging for everyone.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of layers of that. When they feel like they belong, then they feel known or
Yep,
heard or
yep,
seen, and it's disarming. Then
yep.
they're less constrained, they're more fully self-expressed, which kind of brings us back to better up and this human transformation, which from what I understand, I know it's a new organization for you, and dial me in here where I'm wrong, but and you said it earlier in our conversation, but these are providing people with the tools and resources to expand their capacities and
Mhm,
be more fully self-expressed. So it's unconstraining. You can still be an introvert
mhm,
and be unconstrained
mhm.
whilst you're an introvert.
Yeah.